All right, so this was directed by Scott Derrickson. Right now, Scott Derrickson has done a bunch of weird stuff. He's done stuff that was not I wasn't really that into. He directed what Deliver Us from Evil, Sinister, The Day the Earth Stood Still, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, Hellraiser Inferno, which was like a straight to video kind of thing. So this guy really did a great job with this film, considering what I thought he was going to be able to do with his resume, right? And doing a bunch of like drama and thriller oriented horror films and going and biting off a big Marvel cinematic masterpiece, I had my reservations. So visually, what was the director able to pull off that made it good? The director pulled off some visuals that were pretty incredible. I felt like he did something that most people weren't able to do, which was all right, he bridged the gap for Marvel fans from people who are traditionalists and who love their superheroes one way, essentially either maybe not one way, but you see them as a little bit more tropey, and you want them to, have an underdog arc. You want them to, have a darkness before the dawn kind of a scenario that's a trial by fire that essentially vets them. And then usually, they develop their powers through that trial by fire too. And then you emerge your hero. So if you're having an origin story that starts, it follows a fairly traditional line. This has that origin story line, but where it differentiates from, and I guess where he had to stretch himself a little bit, and he didn't just get to look back to the other Marvel films and just, I don't know, copycat what a lot of other people had been doing, was when he tried to take on conjuration and spellcasting and mysticism as the focal point of the power, instead of just like Superman's power, which is, they can be pretty varied. I mean, he can blow ice breath, he can laser eye, he can, in some lore, he's flown around the earth and spun it backwards in reverse time, and he's done all sorts of goofy stuff, right? Flash, his powers eventually accelerated to the point where he was, a huge linchpin of a multiverse event, because he could actually travel between verses. And so those powers, super speed, super strengths, maybe even Ant-Man, which was shrinking, those are a little bit more you're able to wrap your head around those, and they're pretty simple powers. Doctor Strange's powers are out of control, man. This guy, it's time and space, master of time and space, are just a portion of what his sorcery can do, because not only can he manifest energy and he deals with mystical and magical items and metaphysical magic, he does do, some of the more, I guess it's not like time travel, but he's definitely shifting dimension. Yeah, and he even is. He's time looping. And so we have time and space mastery, and then all these other mystical sorcerer powers, for lack of a better word. And I didn't understand that Doctor Strange was a sorcerer, but that's really what he is. He's the Marvel sorcerer. So his powers are really cool to see. Now, how the director was able to bring those to life in the film with CGI was incredible. I mean, it costs a lot of money, and Marvel's willing to just push millions and millions and millions of dollars into making these things work. And finally, CGI has gotten to a point where we can enjoy seeing some of these characters brought to life appropriately, right? So once we've seen a character like Hulk done full CGI, you don't want to go back to Lou Ferrigno, as awesome as he is. Nobody wants to do that. So when you are seeing the world split in part, and you're traveling dimensions, and you're being, you're exiting your body and having an astral body and being spit out into outer space and all this stuff, well, there's no other way to do that besides with the visual effects that they've been able to achieve within, the last few years. And especially the Marvel Universe is spearheading the campaign of, going next level and pushing the envelope on these CGI effects, almost every film. So, if you're a guy that likes psychedelic imagery or trippy imagery, stuff that's like extreme juxtaposition of color and form factor, This film's going to excite you because it takes you on like an Inception times infinity journey. Like if you remember the visual effects from Inception, where the world's just essentially turning in and out of itself, and that's nothing compared to some of the kaleidoscoping that happens to the world in this movie. It was refreshing to see Benedict Cumberbatch from line one, from go, just fluidly slide into the role, and you believe that, well enough, just like watching House, Hugh Laurie, you believe that he's an American doctor. Hugh Laurie was a fantastic portrayal of a gentleman who slid into the role of a narcissist, of a professional medical narcissist. He didn't have to put that layer of, oh, I'm an American on it first. And you got to put that jacket on before you do the role. It just sucks. So, he is at the height of his profession, like I said earlier. He obviously has some accidents. He gets hurt. I don't want to give away. I'm not trying to spoil like exact events so that you can still kind of be surprised. And he has to step away from his profession because he can't physically perform it anymore. Now, I have been in a severe motorcycle accident in my life, and there was a portion of the film that I wanted to discuss. It's really early on and it's small, but I thought they captured it well. I've been debilitated from an accident, not so much, that I was told I was never going to walk again, or that, I was going to have a robotic limb, or, live without the function of my body. I was told that I would recover, but that road to recovery, I was told that I may not have full mobility, and I don't. I was told that I may not, be able to do all the same things that I could always do in life, and I couldn't, and I still can't do all the same things that I could always do, that I could do before my motorcycle wreck. So watching Benedict Cumberbatch's play the character of Doctor Strange going through that accident and having his body trauma affect his psyche in such a significant way that it's actually holding him back from healing himself was fantastic. I could identify with those sentiments, and if you've ever been hurt and trying to recover from a severe injury, I think you're going to identify with that portion of the film where that character is growing. So his origin is fantastic. For me, an origin of, being completely trashed, losing everything, basically hitting the reset button and starting back from zero, not just from zero, but with a severe amount of body damage. You're really starting from a negative. Man, that was something I could resonate with. So that was cool. I'm going to get to the part of the film that I hate the most. I really hate this part the most, guys. And since we're still on casting, and we've discussed Mordo, and we've discussed Doctor Strange, I'm going to and Rachel McAdams' character, Christine Palmer, a little bit. I want to discuss God, I hate her so much. All right. I want to discuss Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton is a horrible actress. She's horrible, okay? If you watched her in The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, you've seen every Tilda Swinton film that you ever need to see. You don't need to see anymore. You don't need to pay any money to any studio that's going to cast her in a role. Don't go see Elizabeth. Don't do that stuff. That's just going to frustrate you. And so, what did she do to this role? First of all, let's talk about the studio and the decision to cast her in that role. I feel like Marvel made the decision to cast someone who is specifically as non-Tibetan as they could, a non-Tibetan actor, and even deviate from some of the original, like, heavier Tibetan themes that I found out were drawn into the comic in the initial creation stages of the character, to satisfy not just the Chinese audience, but the Chinese government, who has been murdering and oppressing Tibetans for years. It's not a state secret. They think it is, maybe. But we here in America know that there have been Tibetan genocides, murders, and in a general oppression of a relatively peaceful ideology for a long time. So to go ahead and to try and make it marketable in China and to try to, make it agreeable, more agreeable for Chinese government censors to allow into the country, I feel like they made the decision to cast Tilda Swinton into the role and step away from the roots of the role that should have been, probably a more traditional Tibetan actor or character. This is, not only has to do with my bias, obviously, toward Tilda Swinton, who I think is just a shitty fucking actress, man. She sucks so bad. But it has to do with the bean counters at Marvel, playing, just insert demographic A into role, demographic whatever into role A, insert demographic whatever into role B, insert demographic whatever into role C. Now we've got our perfect pandering of demographics, and we feel like the bean counters can market this film because we're going to have 50% Latino, we're going to have this many African American views, we got to do these kind of numbers in Asia, we got to do these kind of numbers in South America. And so it's pretty disgusting when you see them whoring demographic pandering to you as a viewer because they think that that's the formula, for cash. That's it. They've got this formula for cash, and they think that they have to, if we don't have this amount of screen time of this character, then we're really not acknowledging this demographic of people. Well, if we don't have an acknowledgement of screen time of this person's going to need a couple more lines. You'll see whole lines that were originally belonged to characters in certain films now are being handed off to other characters just to give a demographic more screen time. And in this case, sticking a white woman in a role that should have been held by an Asian man, that feels like pandering to the, to your sales metrics that you believe are valuable in mainland China. And so I don't think that was a cool thing to do. I think that Tilda Swinton was God, she was one of the worst people that you could have cast in the role. Now, the other character that I was just mentioning was the underdeveloped co-villain role, right? The villain is a giant CGI villain, and I don't want to give all that away because I guess that's kind of end game stuff. And there's some fun stuff that happens at the end. And so it's not just, cool up front and cool in the middle and then whatever. It has a really strong ending. Doctor Strange, not Stranger Things. Doctor Strange has a really fun ending, man. And I think it's clever. I think it solves a solution in a more of a cerebral way than most other action and superhero films seem to be trying to do these days. I think it solved it more like you would see an old episode of Star Trek solved. It's very a cerebral solution, and it's clever, and it's cool. So, but the boss fight, essentially the end boss fight, happens with a character that you don't see for the entire film, and he's essentially ethereal. And the character that's there to fight against the whole time is someone who is essentially trained by the sect that Doctor Strange joins, that Tilda Swinton's character is the head of, the Ancient One is what she's called. God, it's so stupid. Why? This character's motivation doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense that to me, when these characters essentially have everything that they could ever want, you have immortality right where you're at. You're like, the Ancient One, Tilda Swinton, has been there for who knows how long. Clearly, she's like immortal. You could hang out there in the sect and train long enough and learn how to be immortal too, right? Like, so why do you have to steal stuff and turn evil and run away and then join, some... I don't even know how you got in touch with this evil character, this galactically evil gaseous cloud character, but you did, and you did it for a reason that apparently you could have just, you could have just played out your whole hand and stayed right where you were at, and never had to leave the damn facility and become an Ancient One yourself. You could have taken over the whole place one day. Who knows? So I guess the cool thing about this that makes it more interesting than some of these other movies is that it at least the threat from the world, while the threat from the world is galactic and it's largely, this large galactic looming threat that is, I guess, the same as almost every other fucking Marvel movie, right? This one's a little different and mystical in nature, and in that you kind of feel like Doctor Strange, because he can shift into these worlds and he can get there. I don't know how many people he can take there with him, or how he can open these portals, but he's largely on his own, man. Like when he goes into one of these worlds, it's he might have a handful of buddies, but it isn't like he's fighting into one of these worlds. I mean, opening up the Mirrorverse and and trying to deal with the forces of evil that are also traveling through the Mirrorverse and trying to fuck with everything, right? And so when he goes in there to fight, he's like on his own, and that makes it really interesting because in all the other films you can kind of count on, or you're thinking there's going to be this traditional cast of characters, this gigantic roster of characters that Marvel or DC or whoever's, whatever, depends on what movie you're watching, have built that give you this feeling that, you're going to get a cameo any second. And someone's going to come in and they're going to save the day and they're going to make it a little easier to, for the hero. Maybe who your who your potential saviors might be. In this one, I knew so little about the Doctor Strange lore that I didn't see anybody there really to help him besides Mordo, and Mordo wasn't that powerful and could only essentially, I don't know, like physically fight by his side. Doctor Strange is the one that seems to have like the big time badass metaphysical powers. Like he is mastering time and space, and he's just learning how to do some stuff in this movie. But he does some stuff that's pretty cool. The visuals are, for me, the most impressive visuals I've seen in a Marvel film to date. That makes it quite a wild ride. You can, films that were visually shocking and the first of their kind stand out. This may not have broken the mold like, let's say, the Star Trek modeling did, Star Wars modeling did for the first film. That changed the nature of what people perceive to be good special effects in space going forward. That changed a lot of things. Jurassic Park, the hybridization of animatronic and CGI. You go back and you look at some of those scenes now and they don't hold up so well, but man, if you were in theater and you were, the right age like I was, I think I was preteen, like 11 or something when that came out. That was an amazing feat of technology, and it really sucked you into the film and it made it bigger than life. You really felt like you were part of something larger than you because, man, it was so visually impressive. Doctor Strange is the first film that has visually impressed me as dramatically as Inception. I think Inception took some concepts that were kind of basic and it executed them pretty. Not only did they double down, they tripled down on those effects. I mean, it's like they've gone back and rendered and re-rendered and rethought it out and then rendered again, and so you have this feeling like it harkens back to Inception, but it's so much better. And the shifting of the city, it's geometrically, like when these cityscapes and when these roomscapes start breaking apart and morphing, not only is it geometrically harmonious at the same time as it being completely like organic as it's happening, because there are pieces of it that one character in filming might have waved their arm, and in CGI they make that interact with the environment, and a bunch of other stuff starts happening when they do that. So it really gives you this super exciting feeling when the world starts coming apart. And if you've ever engaged in taking some kind of psychotropic or hallucinogenic drug, this is pretty fantastic for harkening back to what those feelings felt like. If you ever wondered, and somebody, some guy's like completely gone and he's mentally gone. So we say, what happened to that guy? Oh man, that guy took too much acid. He left the world and didn't come back. You kind of like a couple of these scenes you imagine that's what it might feel like. You might feel just lost in some in some just inverting landscape that's constantly changing. I tell you, it takes like the Bowie scene at the end of Labyrinth, and it really puts that to shame because these effects are amazing. So let's talk about the pros of the film, visual effects, Benedict Cumberbatch's performance as Doctor Strange, and even the I really, and this is a big one for me, is endings. If you make a film and you don't even know how to end it, it's really frustrating that you couldn't have. There's a lot of things you can do in a planning stage of a story before you completely cast, shoot, edit, and launch a film through marketing channels and get it into theaters. There's a lot you can do to tweak endings and make them a little bit fucking better. And it sucks that so many people just, nope, we got it, it's written, I don't want to do any work, I just want to start the ball rolling. I want to get this behemoth rolling at Universal, no matter what it is. They make these decisions. And then they bring a story to fruition that wasn't as good as it could have been. This story was done well enough, and the ending was executed fantastically, and you are going to love the final solution. You're going to love the final solution. Benedict Cumberbatch sets himself up as a whole different type of superhero, a mystical sorcerer hero that doesn't draw his powers from some of the other mutant powers, or being an alien, or being a complete metaphysical being. He's a man with metaphysical powers. The pros of the film are many, and they're worth watching it for. The cons of the film were very obvious. They were the underdevelopment of his companion characters, and even underdevelopment of villain characters, underdevelopment of the whole roster of characters aside from himself, and the casting of Tilda Swinton. I mean, I guess it's not a ton to drag it down. Other than that, it's a pretty exciting ride, and it gets you through it in a pretty fun way. But they should have taken a little more care with the villain development, and even the foreshadowing. If they're going to foreshadow a villain development, they should have taken more care there. And they absolutely should have taken more care not to cast Tilda Swinton in that role, because she just sucks and everything. So those were the big cons for me, man. Overall, this movie, I cannot give it this 90% that other people are giving it. As awesome as I think it is, I think that they need to try harder. I'm gonna give this one, I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10 because of those couple of factors. They really drug it down for me. But everybody has actors that they can't stand, and everybody has actors that they hate. You try not to let that just ruin a movie for you. Tilda Swinton is normally someone. I watched this movie, you guys. I didn't even want to watch this movie. I had to really mentally prepare myself and set aside a ton of my bullshit to try and do as unbiased a review as I could, and not just sit here and rant about Tilda Swinton for fucking 45 minutes, because she really made it suck that bad. And yeah, man. But it's worth giving Marvel some revenue to continue to expand their cinematic universe in this direction, because Guardians of the Galaxy, that was really exciting, and it broke the mold. Ant-Man, a lot of people, I wasn't a fan of Ant-Man. A lot of people enjoyed Ant-Man, and it broke the mold. I will give it that for some Marvel films. And Doctor Strange now. Doctor Strange breaking the mold. Doctor Strange kicking ass, bringing magic and mysticism and magical objects and just things that you didn't think were ever going to make it into the cinematic Marvel universe all have a potential of being there. And it's like colliding fantasy and the genre of almost pure fantasy and the genre of superhero, and with a hybridization of Eastern elements that influenced the Doctor Strange character's creation, which were really cool. You don't see that often. This is great. So Yeah, 7 out of 10. Room for improvement, most definitely. Do not ever bring back Tilda Swinton, even as an ethereal spirit, even as a 3 second cameo. Don't even put a picture of her on the wall. Just omit her from the storyline and move on, and we're gonna have a great time. And I think everybody's gonna enjoy part two, especially if you get to cast the Morbo character as Mordo character as the villain counterpart to Benedict Cumberbatch, because those two actors together in an intense face off are going to be amazing, and you're going to enjoy that film. I think all of us are going to enjoy that film. So I'm excited about this. Made me excited about every other Marvel film that I was getting a little stagnant with. It made me excited about the next Doctor Strange film. I was only looking forward to Guardians, really, right now. I was mostly looking forward to Guardians, and of course, I'm looking forward to Aquaman. I mean, that's DC, right? But I'm still looking forward to Aquaman. But I want to see. I want to see what they can do with this now. All right, guys. This has been an extremely long review, and I don't give a shit. Like I told you, I rant. And if you came here, then you came here to hear me rant. I actually prefer ranty reviews. They're my favorite kind. When I go and watch reviews, because I go online. I started doing this because I love other reviewers like Angry Joe, who has inspired me to do a lot of what I'm doing here because of the amount of investment that he gives in each video. I like hearing, pre-thought. Subtext. I like hearing afterthought. I like hearing lots of opinions. Hopefully you do too. And hopefully that's why you're here. So, I hope to just keep bringing you guys more enjoyable reviews, and I'll be seeing you soon. Watch Doctor Strange. Go out and check it out. You're gonna enjoy it. And if you haven't seen my last review, go and watch Nerve. And I'll talk to you guys soon.